With you from my heart today. I have a mailbag kind of question that is, Tara, how do you find time to write? Some of you may know that I, in addition to being a big family mom with 11 children and homeschool, that I've in the last year or two, oh gosh, time's flying. I've written a nonfiction book about the blessing of children. And I've also started writing mystery books, little like fun, cozy, clean mystery books under a pen name of Hazel Smith. So yeah, I've got the third book in the works, and sorry, I was like, okay, I'm licking my fingers because the static electricity is okay. There we go. My hair is fine. Stop it. Back to the topic at hand. The question was, how do you find time to write? Like, do you have a course? Do you have any kind of content on this specifically? And I'm like, yes and no. I have never necessarily shared, in my Big Family Moms Facebook community, how do I find time to write? Because not every big family mom wants to write. That's kind of niche, right? Like some of us love to write, to journal. We have different hobbies and interests as much as we, big family moms, which I define culturally as having more than 3 children. Because right now, at this moment in history, that is considered, at least culturally, a big family. Though once you have 5, 6 kids, you're like, oh my gosh, it's like a walk in the park, depending on their age and health, of course. So I don't have a course or a video per se on that, but I do have a heart to speak to the broader topic, which is routine, right? How do you find time to do anything as a big family mom, whether it's business or pleasure? Hence the title of today's video, finding time for business or pleasure. So for me, writing, which is like pick a hobby. I've got a couple of them. You've probably got a few things you enjoy doing. But there's kind of two categories for everything, isn't it? Right? And I do this with my kids. Is it a need or is it a want? This is something I teach my big family moms, a big family home course. I'll tell you about later. So here's the principle: is defining things based on priority, right? And that flows from your values. I unpack this more in my course. It's like, what has, speaking as a Christian, what are you called? Who are you called to be? Right. Primarily for me, like I'm a daughter of Christ, like born again by the blood of the Lamb, using some real Christian language. But like I belong to God first and foremost. So that's going to trickle down into my priorities, like the order of importance of, first of all, people, right? Relationships in my life, namely my husband, my children, right? My most closest circle of those who I am called to serve, as a direct reflection of my relationship and the grace of growing in skill and knowledge and truth and all the good virtues of being a child of God, adopted by His grace. So getting to a whole, I could wax eloquent about that topic for a while. But here's a short and sweet little micro application of how do I find time to write in the midst of all of that. 11 kids. We choose to homeschool. That flows from our values, right? Because I've identified, and there's a process that I've taken. At first it was subtle, but then when I really had to like tell it to other people, people started asking, and then I put it in a course. Then I was able to break it down. So first was identifying like what is most important to me in the time that I have been given by the Lord, assuming that I will live to, grand life into my great grandmother years in my 80s. If I knew that I had 40 more years, I'm 44 this September. If I knew that's it at 84 years old, like my husband's grandmother, that was it. Pneumonia would hit and I'd be gone. That was it. If I knew I had 4 decades left, because the first 4 are gone, they're gone. If I could speak to myself 20 years ago when I was just married, I didn't even know that I was going to be a big family mom, right? But we're not talking about going back in time. We're talking about using the time that we have wisely. Lots of scriptures talk about that, right? Lord, teach me to number my days, right? We have a limited number of days of heartbeats. And so, not to be too morbid, that being said, it's just like, so teach me wisdom, right? How do I apply this knowledge wisely? And it helps to identify the needs versus the wants. So there are some needs, right? We've got a pay our mortgage, right? We're going to keep a roof, by the grace of God. I mean, of course, there's that tension of depending on His supply and His providence, and also applying myself with the strength and the energy and the resources and the skills that I have in the season that I have. And there are different seasons, which I'll talk about at the end. So right now at this season of my life, I'm 44, I'm not 24 or 34 anymore. My oldest just turned 18, the baby just turned 1. So I have identified that for me, writing is actually not in the category of wants. Some of you might be surprised to hear that because you're like, oh, it's so much fun. Terry, you do so many things. Like you're in musical theater and and you do this big family mom thing. And I'm like, I do. And there's an element of play. I say I could not sustain this if I didn't genuinely enjoy talking about these topics and helping other big family moms grow in grace and skill in a way someone had been available to me, like though Facebook had just started when I was when I was nursing the twins when they was like 3 kids under 2. But for me, writing actually is an income stream. So, and I have it's part of our bigger picture. Like, where do we want to be in 10, 15 years when what do I want to be when I'm 50? Where, Lord willing, insofar as I can, make my plans and the Lord will direct my steps, where would I like to be when I'm 60? And because my husband, as an entrepreneur, we're a very entrepreneurial family, we've never had savings, like for savings with like if there'd be different terms in the States, I'm in Canada, but like basically savings in some form. Like what do they call it? If you're here live with me now, what do they call it in the States? RSPs is what it's called in Canada, like registered savings programs. 401ks. I think that's it. And like I've never been forced to save by virtue of having this um my husband's employment. It hasn't forced us to have. And side note, I wouldn't even bank on that. I don't put a lot of stock in those kind of things that are basically government set up. I have a certain level of healthy skepticism. 401k, thank you. So that being said, for me, writing is not just a pleasure, but I do have other things in my life that are more of a pleasure. Like I like to crochet. I have seasons where I'm totally into it, and other seasons when I'm totally not into it. How do you find time for anything? Well, first of all, you need to know the needs and the wants. And then, spoiler alert, it's only 24 hours in the day. So I've actually mapped out my week. I've got worksheets in my course where you map out the week and you see, okay, where are the things that I'm currently doing? Then you can reevaluate, like, do I really need to be doing all this? Maybe there's some stuff we can cut. Maybe all these extracurriculars are driving me to the point of burnout and exhaustion and actually like secretly hating my kids on some level because they're like pulling me in 100 directions. But maybe there's some changes you can make. So I found time to write and all of what it means to write, because it's not just writing, I actually self-publish. So there's like marketing and all kinds of stuff there. There's lots of things I say no to. There's oh my gosh. Find a big family mom and you're going to find a pretty capable lady right there who's being probably invited or sort of, invited, like, I'll put it, that's my polite way of putting it, to volunteer because there's stuff at your church, there's stuff everywhere. And you got to pick and choose, right? Like you would with your kids when they want to do it all. And you're like, listen, there's only 1 hour. We're not going to do it all. Pick what's most important to you. Pick what's realistic within your strength, your health, your budget, like the things you got to factor in. And then I fit it in the week. I fit it in the month. I fit it in the year. But here's the thing. It's got to be flexible. Yeah, sometimes there's deadlines. You're like, "Oh, I really" you gotta meet a deadline, that's life. And sometimes I have pulled, some, what do they call them? Burning the candle, the midnight oil, that's the expression. Sometimes I have stayed up and I fit it in. It started with blogging, and blogging is really small. It's like 500 words is the sort of sweet spot for blogs that aren't too long or too short. 500 words takes me, like, maybe 40 minutes to pump out. And I can fit a little I could break that up into, like, a couple of little breaks throughout the week, and then eventually, like, blogging's got longer. I'm like, "Hey, I've got enough content here for, like, probably a small book." And that's actually what my sister did when she first started writing. Uh, total plot twist in her life because she was not planning on writing, but suddenly her blogging turned into content of her first book. And now she's like expanded that into like a trilogy series of fiction works, and it's turned into both business and pleasure because it's like therapeutic for some people to write. Some people need to write. It might be something you never share, but you got to get it in because it's a way to get some stuff out. There's things you're never going to share or publish with anybody. So I basically have broken down my week. I've broken down my days, and I have like, okay, I've got meals that anchor the day, and I've got times we homeschool. I've got right now, okay, look at that, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, Eastern Standard Time. I'm not homeschooling anymore. I've planned our week to be 4 days a week, and we're done in the morning. So I've structured my life as best I could, except for there's some days when everybody's puking or I'm pregnant again. I'm not right now, and I have to be flexible. So that's the thing is I've shared in my Big Family Home course for anyone who wants to check it out. The link is below. how to create a flexible routine, because some of us tend to veer into like very rigid, like everything has to be done perfect, 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 just so. And we can get really cranky with ourselves and with our loved ones if things aren't exactly precisely on time. And then there's the other opposite end of just like, woo, all over the place, and then nothing's getting done. And that can create stress and frustration. And, it can snowball really quickly into just, homing a little taste of hell instead of a little taste of heaven. So God bless you. We don't have to be the same. Right. There's a lot of in between in those two extremes. Some of us are a little more organized, some of us a little more disorganized. And so long as you're hitting the needs, the kids are getting fed, they have clothes on their back, you're not going backwards into debt, and collectors are calling. And if they are, I have a whole section of Big Family Home course that talks about feeding your family on a budget, which is like when I designed that, I did not know inflation was coming at us like a freight train. And it's been more timely than ever at helping moms like really be like, how do I streamline the budget as much as possible, especially if you've never ever done it. If you could even find $100 more in the weekly budget, think that's $400 a month, right? But I wasn't going to get onto that. I was talking more about the routine part. So last summer, I was able to use this technique and write 40 devotions for a contract that I had to write the content of a devotion that's going to be coming out in the spring. I'm not sure how much I'm supposed to say because of NDAs and stuff. So it was a job. It was extra money on the side, and it ended up paying for Christmas, like not whole Christmas, but we ended up having 2,000 extra dollars at Christmas time this year, which is like, oh, praise the Lord, in US, which turns into a lot when you translate that into Canadian. So we were able to have a comfortable Christmas in the year of inflation. And it's because I chose to do some work on the side that was paid work. Fits in my life, fits in my budget. Well, I didn't have to pay to do it. I got paid. Yes, hello. Um, and it's a priority and it fits into a bigger piece. So I hope this makes sense. It's sort of like step back on the 30,000-foot view and be like, do I really need to write? Or do I just want to write? If it's a hobby, then like do it at your own pace. Take a whole year to write a book if you want to. Take 3 years. Map it out. There's no hurry. But if it's got a money piece, or at least you plan on monetizing your writing, that's where it's all going, then you may need to make some adjustments in your current commitments. Or like my sister did to get her first book written, she started getting up an hour early. I think it was at least 4 days a week, if not 5 days a week. And even though in her head she's like, I can't afford, I need my sleep, I'm a mom. It's amazing what you can do when you've committed to do it. That being said, you do have to bear in mind the season of life. If you're postpartum, like 6 weeks postpartum, and you're suddenly just like gonna do it all, you're gonna lose weight, you're gonna like start to volunteer at your church on like all these different things that are coming out in the spring, and you're gonna start homeschooling, you're gonna start writing that blog you've been meaning to do forever. You may bite off more than you could chew and set yourself up for burnout. Been there, done that. So I can tell you, as a card carrying member of the Big Family Mom, borderline burnout club, it's like to pick and choose what's most important. And you know what? Maybe for health reasons, just using postpartum, because big family moms, like it's a joke. It's like every time you say you have news, you're like, are you pregnant? Because it's always your news, or at least that's the stereotype of big family moms. But if you are, let's just say you are currently pregnant, or you've just gone through a season of life, health related. It might be more emotional, like mental, just not physical, but something that's really weighing you down. Maybe you've just been through some really heavy duty relationship stuff in your personal life. And now it might be helpful to start, for example, writing or crocheting or learning a new skill or a hobby or even starting a business. But you need to weigh that against what it's going to cost you in terms of time and energy and bandwidth. Because first and foremost, this is where I'll tie it all together, is to go back to who God has called you to be. And as a Christian, speaking to other Christian moms, because that's my heart, that's who I'm primarily, have a heart to speak to, is do all things, like it says in the good book, for the glory of God, right? Do it unto him. He's your master, to use that biblical language I love so much. And he's a good master, right? He doesn't drive you with a whip like a slave master, but he's a good master. And if he's called you to write, then he will show you how to fit it in your schedule in a way that makes sense for you right now without killing you in the process. It might be sanctifying, might be purifying to examine some of your commitments and the things you've been directing and channeling time into, but just kind of like money with budgeting. Sometimes you're like, we've only got this much in the budget. So you have to decide where to direct that money. And maybe this month is going to be a lean month because you don't have a lot of extra. Same thing with time. He's given us 24 hours. And how will we steward it? I've chosen to write. And I have a powerful reason why, because it's tied to our financial future. And this isn't all on me. Praise the Lord. I don't believe God has called women alone to bear that. I'm married. And I'm not going to get into the whole topic of like, women making money and whatever, because it's another topic. Proverbs 31 style, I am totally on with in a way that allows me to still honor my highest priorities. And I have called first and foremost to be God's, to be Gavin's wife, and to be the mother of my children. And if anything I'm doing, writing, crocheting, volunteering at the church is going to compromise that, it's got to go or it's going to have to change. So, with my priorities in check, and God giving me a little check sometimes, then I'm able to set goals, whether it's business or pleasure. Now, the business ones do take higher priority because they're usually tied to my family, right? Because this is a means of support of our future and even of our right now, like Christmas that just came past. And praise the Lord, wasn't the hardest Christmas we've ever had. We've had some tough Christmases when you're like, it's gonna be a lean one. But this year was a fat one. Not because I'm rolling in the big bucks as a writer, though I have aspirations. If the Lord wishes to entrust me with far more than we need, then I pray that He will find me trustworthy. He's the one who brings the increase, right? I will be a good steward with, first and foremost, the people He's entrusted to me, the time that He's entrusted to me, and the talent and resources that He's entrusted to me. So it's going to look different for everybody. I hope that this has blessed you today, that this has answered the question, the surface level, how do you find time? But then the deeper question of how do you find time to do anything? And it does come down to a little bit of system and strategy help. So if you want to check out Big Family Home, that's got the whole rhythmic routine like course. It's got that in. It's got 4 parts. Big Family Home, the logistics, like how to manage the chores and like literally the physical house and what that means to Big Family Mom because it's unique. The routine I just talked about, keeping calm as a mom and the relationship side of it, especially with your kids, you're screaming at them all the time. And then finally, I talked about it, feeding your family on a budget. So that's all included in the course. You can check it out below. And there you go. That's pretty much it. So I'll wrap it up by saying this. I have my little notes here. I'm just referencing because I may have said it. Oh, yeah, I already told you. I was going to finish up by saying about last year I did this devotion. And I did it by breaking it out into doing 3 a week. It took me 3 hours a week. And I just decided which those hours were going to be. And if I missed it on Tuesday, then I was like, okay, well, I've given myself a little chip. I can definitely do it by Thursday, Friday. And I just knew where it fit in the week. I use my phone. I make a lot of appointments with myself, and I send myself a lot of emails. Tara, remember to put this on the grocery list. Oh, Tara, schedule this in, or like, I trust that God how to do it in a way that makes sense for me, that's flexible, and is going to protect my sanity and my health at the same time. So that's it. What I have to share with you today. Went a little bit long because it's an important question, and we're all wondering like, how do I do anything? Bear in mind your season, right? Because not everybody's season is going to look the same. Things look a lot different at 44 than they did at 34, and they did at 24 for me. And praise the Lord, I trust Him in faith that should He grant me long life, that 54, 64, 74, and Lord willing, even 84 are going to look different. And I will be prepared because He is good and He is guiding me and showing me how to make it work as a big family mom.